What do Taylor Swift, a sold out concert, and a 71-acre property in rural Indiana have in common? More than you might think. When Maggie Klein secured tickets to Taylor Swift's Eras tour, she unknowingly set in motion a chain of events that would completely change her family's future. With the house needed for concert guests, her husband Mark suddenly found himself with an unexpected free weekend and one simple task: find somewhere else to stay. Instead, he found something quite different. What started as a casual scouting trip to explore potential investment opportunities quickly became an emotional connection to a piece of land that neither Mark nor Maggie could ignore. Just days later, they found themselves asking a very different question. Not should we do this, but how are we going to make this happen? In this episode, we meet Mark and Maggie at the very beginning of their journey. There's no polished success story here, no completed resort, no ribbon cutting, no grand opening. Instead, you'll hear the raw, honest reality of what it looks like to stand at the start of a dream. Together, they share how they discovered a remarkable 71-acre property near Indiana's famous Turkey Run State Park, why they believe nature itself is the greatest amenity, how they're balancing family life, careers, and business development, and the lessons they're learning as they navigate feasibility studies, financing, planning, and the countless decisions that come with building a hospitality business from scratch. If you've ever dreamed of creating a glamping site, retreat, or nature-based business, or you're simply fascinated by how big ideas become reality, this conversation offers a rare opportunity to follow a project from its very first steps. Because sometimes the most exciting stories aren't the ones that have already been written, they're the ones that are just beginning. Welcome to the Glamping Americas podcast, the place for inspiration about the business of upscale camping, glamping, and luxury outdoor guest accommodations. I'm Sarah Riley from the Glamping Academy, and I'm working with my friends at the Glamping Show Americas to share everything you need to know about new trends, events, business models, and investment potential in the rapidly growing world of luxury camping that delivers an experience. Interest in this industry is exploding, so if you want to be the first to find out what's hot and what's not, subscribe here and check out the show notes for more exciting news and links. And be sure to add the next Glamping Show Americas to your calendar for the 29th and 30th of September 2026 near Denver, Colorado. See you there. Mark and Maggie, it's so wonderful to have you here joining me. You know, you really had me curious. The moment you said to me, Taylor Swift ended up getting us thinking about starting the glamping business. So maybe we should start from there. What did Taylor Swift have to do with it?
Taylor Swift, during the Eras tour, she decided to come to Indianapolis, which is where we live. I happen to be a huge Taylor Swift fan. And my sister and I and two of our friends ended up getting tickets, which was very difficult to do, but we managed it. And when we knew we were confirmed, I had told Mark, I have gotten our kids to spend the weekend with my parents, and I'm going to need you to go somewhere that is not our house because I need it to host all of these people for the Taylor Swift concert. Pretty much, he was booted out and had to find something to do.
Yeah, so I'd broken it down. I had about 3 weeks to figure it out, and at this time, we had started thinking about, hey, if we were going to do something short-term rental or even bigger, where would we want to do that? And state parks were where we had decided. So I'd been scoping out properties around state parks in Indiana, and I basically came down to two things. One, I was either looking for an intensive software boot camp so I could go build a software app, which is Path A, or two, I was actually going to use this time to really go and put my money where my mouth is, and let's go check out some of these properties. Found a couple of local realtors. I scheduled times to go see 3 different properties. And that was it. That's how I spent the weekend when I was told you can't come home right now. Turns out it was a very good weekend for us all.
Mhm.
Oh, sounds wonderful. I hope the concert was good.
It was incredible.
And so was the land search good, Mark? Tell me what happened there.
Yeah, really interesting, right? You plan for A, you kind of wait for B to come, and then it's usually C or D. So, great realtor, knew the area. We've always lived in urban settings, so Wanted to find someone who knew what to look for in rural settings because all of our state parks are obviously in rural settings. Went to the first couple and could imagine something taking place there, but realized we would have to be creating everything around it. There was no natural draw. There's no reason for someone to be there other than we thought we'd create a cool experience. These were more the size we thought, 5 to 10 acres with a house already there that we could build upon. But the final property, the one I was saving, was closest to one of the bigger, busier state parks here in Indiana. We had the Friday evening to go and review it. It was 71 acres, much larger than we had anticipated. Had a house, had a barn, had a horse pasture. I show up, and within the first 30 seconds of driving down the gravel path, I was just like, this is unbelievable. I was just overwhelmed by the nature of it. And then it was also, this is overwhelming. I had never really processed how do you go and actually evaluate 71 acres, having no real background in it. Luckily, Sarah, I was able to get through at least the house portion of it, and that was hitting all my boxes. Quickly told the realtor that I'm gonna probably need to come back. She scheduled time for Saturday morning. And then that night, when I went back to my cabin to do research, it was pretty funny. What I realized is that the cabin I was staying at was actually the property right next door to where we were evaluating. They just happened to have their own little short-term rentals. It allowed me to really get my bearings. I came more prepared Saturday, and I think within 20 minutes, I was like, I need to figure out how to sell Maggie on this.
And how did you sell Maggie on that? What did you
Uh,
come back and say? How do you approach that? How do you come
I
back?
do remember getting a text that weekend and him being like, Maggie, I really think this is it. And of course, I was somewhat distracted by all the fun I was having, but I was
Yeah.
okay. I didn't expect that's what he would say. This was more of a scouting, just to start looking at properties so that we even had an idea of what we were looking for. I think you have to be at a property to see, oh, this kind of makes sense. These things are not what we're looking for. This is what we'd like to have. And so I was not expecting him to text me and be like, I think I found it. Our trajectory was more like maybe in 5 years, this would be a really cool project for us to take on. So when he texted that, I was pretty shocked.
Yeah.
But
Luckily, I being so close and beyond just the property itself, what really became apparent, Sarah, was that its location to the state park. It's about an hour or a mile and a half from the state park, so there's a natural draw. This area also has a huge festival at the end of the year. So thinking in terms of we don't have to go and create from scratch this experience. We just need to go and highlight and be the best we can in this area.
build onto it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
build onto it. What I did is
Yeah.
I sent that text and then I immediately went to the state park and I hiked 14 miles planning this out over the next 8 hours of just, okay, A, here's my pitch to Maggie, but B, I got to remove it from just the emotion and say, here's how we could actually pull it off. And I think I walked through a lot of photos with my head down, just trying to figure out the math. But I felt
Mhm.
by the time I had dinner that night, I was both exhausted and ready to go home and make my pitch.
And I will say, I think we went back 10 days later so that I could see the property in person. And I had the exact same experience as he did. So I can still remember pulling onto the property, and it's a somewhat long driveway from the road to the house. And it took just driving that driveway and pulling up to the house for me to be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is it. This is what he had been talking about. This had always been his dream. Not that I didn't want to do it, but this was his. He
Definitely
started
more of
talking
the
about it. Yeah.
definitely more of the long-term visionary. Maggie's the very, okay, if we're going to do this, how does it happen practically?
I'm the detail oriented. But yeah, and I was like, okay, you're right. This looks like it's it. And by the time we left, and we were there for probably 2 hours.
2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. Looking around it. We drove the property on a Polaris. We went through the house, obviously, but we just walked, we hiked around, and by the time we left, we were both like, all right, how are we going to do this? Mm.
I think the key piece to that was it wasn't just a piece of property that we felt we could do. That property just started talking to us and hasn't stopped every single time we
Mhm.
show up. And that's the key piece for us is that whatever we end up building, we want it to be to our standards, but ultimately it's just to reconnect people with nature. And I think that's the
Mhm.
big secret is you can do everything you want, but there's a lot built in that you can lean on if you find the right place.
So let's just give listeners a bit of context here. So you really are at the beginning of your journey. There is absolutely no, oh, and this is what happened, and that's what happened, and we decided to do this. No, this is the very beginning. This is following the beginning steps of someone else. And I think that's what's so exciting, is because we can follow you along to find out how you thought through things, how you set about things, what considerations you had, and from the emotional kind of side of things, Mark, to the practical side of things, Maggie. What did you decide to do? I love the fact that it was actually you, Mark, had to come and pitch to Maggie. And that I love, because, and especially the way you did that, because you went hiking in nature to get your thoughts in gear. And that in itself is something I would absolutely say to everyone to do as a recommendation. Hiking in nature, nothing better than that when you want to get through a problem. But what's your thinking in terms of what you're hoping to bring to the land? Because that's a lot of acres to be managing. So there's going to be a lot of land management involved, and you've got a house. So I'm assuming you're not going to be living there. So tell me a little bit about your vision so far for the beginning of your journey.
To give you some background info, we started with long-term rentals. So we had kept, when we moved, we kept the house, the first house we ever bought that we brought our girls home from the hospital to, and all of that. We kept that to start our rental property journey. And then from there, we acquired three more long-term rentals in the Indianapolis area, which is where we live. And from there, we got that real estate bug. And I think we both knew we wanted to get into short-term rentals, the hospitality industry. We really felt drawn to that. But as you are no doubt aware, it is considerably more expensive to start a short-term rental than a long-term rental. And so I don't know that we expected to have our first foray into the short-term rental world to go from, okay, we own four long-term rentals. They're not huge houses, they're small starter homes, I would say. And I don't think we were going to go from that to a 71-acre property with a house and a barn. And that was like a way bigger step than we had planned when for our short-term rental journey start. But it's what we did. And I think we put our heads down and we got it done.
Yeah. I think the big piece is we also, again, as much as we are not developers, we know what we were looking for and we walk the land. And so key one is try and figure out what does it naturally allow for? Where are the areas that either pull people together, where we can see additional dwellings? Because that's the ultimate goal here, Sarah, I think, is we've come to between 15 and 20 dwellings, several different styles, so we can go and engage with multiple visitors at different life stages, right? The goal is to set something up where, hey, maybe my family and I always used to go camping out there. Here's maybe a nicer indoor plumbing option with a full kitchen that we can go and create like some memories, right? And here's the first approachable to, as we grow the family, some larger dwellings, dwellings on the property pulled together with a master trail system because it is large enough for that, because we
Mhm.
want the property itself to be part of a full experience, not just where we stay at night, but
Mhm.
rainy day, great, we got everything we need here. Don't want to do the state parks, great, we can go and have that experience and make it more personal here. So I think ultimate goal is to elevate above every offering that's out there without stretching it too far, right? We
Mhm.
believe that it is located in an area that will pull from multiple metro areas within a 3 hour drive. And it's already has about 100 years of history of people coming and visiting the area. So again, give them a new, fresher reason to come and also stay longer.
And truly to create that experience. So I think it's not just, like Mark said, it's not just a place where there's some places that you rent. It's not just to stay. Tying in that true hospitality industry so that there are the experiences like having our own trail system, being able to offer activities, being able to offer live music, maybe outdoor movies, just like things like that. A lot of things that we've talked through, knowing that those would be a huge draw that we personally would be looking for when we're going to stay somewhere. and being able to offer those. That's really, for me, a very exciting piece of it. I love that aspect, and I'm very excited to be able to get my hands into offering those experiences as well.
What is it? Is it that's the reason for you going for the glamping element as well? Is that why you've gone for that angle? Because of the whole experience you want to offer and you're basing it on your own, what you would like to do as well?
Interestingly, yes, we have been our own main avatar, I would say, from the beginning. And I think everybody has obviously a few avatars that you've mapped out, but you have that one that you're catering to. And I would say our main avatar is a couple who have some kids and are looking for an experience that's maybe, like I said, elevated. I don't want to say luxury or anything like that. That is not at all the area. We're in a rural area. There's hiking, it's outdoors. We have creeks running through our property. We are expecting creek stomping, and this is not luxury. However, I think there is a way to take that outdoor hospitality and create an elevated experience where you get the creek stomping, but you also are able to go back to a really nice house that you have rented that has all the amenities that you need so that you're completely comfortable and happy after you've been outside all day. You can have this kind of elevated stay as well.
And while you're talking about it in terms of a house, it's actually a place to stay, isn't it? So you do have a house on the property which you're renting out, but there's going to be other structures. Have you thought about the types of structures that you think would be best for your avatar and for people you're wanting to attract?
Yeah, and again, hitting on that avatar, funny enough, the first long weekend Maggie ever took together when we were started dating about 15 years ago was to this area. And so we go and we say, here's that
Mhm,
first avatar, young couple to grow into.
mhm,
But once we realized what we wanted to do, we then went and started researching as much as we could. And that's where we came across the Glamping Americas show last September. And we went into that. So we decided that, hey,
we
we
got to
have to
get
go.
there.
We got to go. This is where everything we
Mhm,
need to learn is being brought to one fairgrounds, right? We went out there with a couple of ideas in terms of structures. We knew we wanted at least two styles of structures that were two different price points that would come with two different ADRs. And what was interesting is we went out.
and more two different sizes as well, not just
Oh,
like in
sure.
terms of, yeah, more something that would sleep fewer people and something that if you had a bigger group, you would be able to go as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Went out there with some thoughts on a couple of structures, but instantaneously being able to go and walk them, right? So you have the
Mm.
outdoor expo, and that's just you
It
never
was
come across it.
incredible.
It's the perfect showroom,
Yeah.
right? Because it within 15 minutes we were able to go and, you know, process whether or not what we had come in thinking we wanted to do in terms of some of our structures. We just realized it wasn't going to be right for the location, for the climate. And
Mhm.
so we were able to pivot and not just say, oh, we could then go and
Mhm.
talk to 30 other folks and ask really detailed questions. How are you going to stand up in this kind of weather? Do you handle all four seasons? What have you done in Indiana? What have you done,
Mhm.
period? Because it's so new. So being able to talk to the people who are actually making them and creating this industry as we go was a really unique experience. Came away with that with several vendors in terms of structures that we were sold on. And then more importantly, getting to talk to people like builders, right? So finding those folks who are going to handle what do we do next? Because we have a lot of those conversations
Mhm.
between the two of us. Okay,
Yeah.
we figured this out. What do we do next?
I also think it really allowed us to zero in on what we were specifically looking for. We went in with a lot of ideas. We had seen a lot of things through research, but it's very different to be in person walking through structures and see and just being able to experience them ourselves. And I think one of the big takeaways we found was, I don't know if just to remind your listeners, Indiana has two extreme climates. So we get very hot and humid in the summer, and we get very cold and can have feet of snow in the winter. But it really just depends on the year. So we need to navigate all of the different climates. And we knew that going in, but being able to see the structures in person, it really allowed us to say, okay, you know what? We are interested in stick built, soft sided. I know that a lot of them are made to withstand different types of weather, but for us specifically, we realized that wasn't the direction we wanted to go. And it really allowed us to, like I said, narrow down and zero in on what specifically we wanted to do as we continued to grow these ideas in our head.
And a piece you had asked earlier, just to circle back on, knowing that we don't have plans of living full time on the property, managing
Mhm.
from about an hour away, what was going to give us the most realistic opportunity to live both lives, right?
Mhm.
So it wasn't just a constant running back and forth. We recognize and we already have a great support team in the area that we believe we can grow appropriately. But we wanted to remove as many of those kind of, yep, it happened again type of conversations as possible. So a little bit sturdier, a little bit focused towards longevity without constant updates, just
Yes.
your standard
And heat and AC would be a bigger
draw. Makes
draw.
sense. Again, try and set it apart from, say, a lot of what's offered in the area currently.
Yeah, because your weather systems clearly are going to have two things, aren't they, of major concern? Three things. One, snow load. That's a big deal in structures that are temporary.
Yep.
And then you've got mold from the damp
Humidity,
and the
for sure.
Mhm.
humidity. And you cannot have a moldy structure and a guest in there happy. They will not be happy. They'll be giving you terrible reviews. So you need to know that material is not going to mold in that damp environment. And then, of course, your different temperatures. So the heat
Mhm.
and then the cold. And again, having people there comfortably, being able to have the longest season that you could possibly have, all things to think through. And I think people who are very early in their development process, they're so excited by it. They run a million miles an hour. You're very lucky that you found a piece of land that you were able to purchase, and you were lucky in that respect because not everyone manages to do it that quickly. But then people are running through it quite quickly. They're not thinking about what you're thinking, which is what's going to work best for this, what's going to work best for that, and how am I going to fit this around my life? And things like, are there tools, and I'm sure you have already talked about this, are there tools that we can have like smart locks that allow people to come and go so they can check in and check out with the least amount of impact? You have a team, great, but then can you reduce the impact on that team so you can keep your team smaller? And so all of these things are really interesting to go through from the beginning. And but we haven't really talked about the state park that you're near. We haven't really touched on that. So I know it's got a funny name.
Sure enough. Yeah. So it's Turkey Run State Park. That's in Western Indiana and unique for the entire state. Most people think of Indiana as a pretty flat agriculture state, and they're not totally wrong, but there's a couple of portions that were part of an ancient river system. So it was the Michigan River, prehistoric. And so it came through and carved all these geological anomalies for the area. So there's a bunch of caverns and hollers, as we'll call them out here, but it makes for really great hiking and it just allows for, again, a much different feel than you would ever anticipate, even in the Great Lakes or Midwest region.
You think it's going to be a bunch of cornfields, and it is, but then you go into Turkey Run State Park and the topography is completely different. You hike through in fact, the most famous trail at Turkey Run is Trail 3. And in order to complete it, you actually have to use multiple ladders to get up and down different areas of the trail. And so if that gives you an idea of when we say it's not like you take two steps down, it is truly a really cool topography that you get to see.
I was just going to say, when you're thinking about your avatar, so the person or the people that you're wanting to attract, are they naturally coming into the area, or is that something you're going to have to educate those avatars to attract them into it and say, yes, we do have, it's not just flat, we do have these different topographies, we do have the hiking and really interesting landscapes. Is that something you're going to have to do through your marketing, or are they already coming in?
I actually think it's both.
Yeah.
I think that you're going to get the people who are coming who love Turkey Run. Quite a few people in the Midwest have heard of Turkey Run State Park. They are familiar with it. Heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I've been coming there since I was a kid." So there are people who already know about it, already like to come, who I think, if given the opportunity to find a new place to stay, would be happy with it. I also think there's a lot of opportunity. I think Turkey Run brings 800,000 to a million
Anyway,
annually. Yeah, you're getting a lot of people coming in, but I also think that there's a great opportunity to bring in new people who maybe they might have heard of it, but they haven't been there. And highlighting not just the state park, which is huge, a huge draw, but also a lot of the other things in the area. For instance, there's a lot of great antiquing, which Mark and I ourselves, we love antiquing. If you saw pictures of the house that we have on the property, you would be you
spend
would
a lot of time.
recognize that right away. But yeah, there's that. There's actually another really beautiful state park just about
20 miles.
20 miles from Turkey Run called Shade State Park. It's truly stunningly beautiful as well. There's just a lot for the area to do. And so it's bringing in some new people who might not have been there. And so the marketing kind of needs to highlight that as well.
And Sarah, on top of that, the area will draw people for a day. Our goal is to give them a reason to stay for the weekend. And we won't be the only one, but we hope to be the first to really go and set that new motion or trajectory of, hey, it wasn't just a great day and we're close enough to Indy or St. Louis, we can make it back that night. No, we want to give them a reason to experience a full weekend and not just a great day of hiking, but a weekend back in nature. Ultimately, as we build out our property, the goal is to create a 3-day stay, 1 day for each of the state parks, third day on our grounds.
And as I like to keep saying, 3 day stay is the start, but maybe it could be 4 days. Maybe you're 1 day on our property, 1 day at each state park, and 1 day for antiquing, or maybe you could build it out.
Yeah, yeah. And you need to as well, because to keep people on site, that's going to make it more profitable for you. And it means that the costs will reduce because you won't have the turnover, you won't have the changeover, you won't have the cleaning bills. All of those things are great for business. So when you're thinking about what kind of facilities you're going to offer to try to encourage people to stay for longer, are you thinking about wellness on the site? Are you thinking about things like disc golf, which is something I only just found out about the other day, which I had no idea there's so many people going crazy for this thing. Yeah, what are you thinking about?
Number one, what we're thinking about is longevity. And you hear every trend. And since we've been following this, I'd say there's probably been 2 or 3 trends already that are taking over. And
Pickleball.
or over amenitizing, right? Where
Mhm.
it's just like this, it doesn't seem realistic. Our goal is not to be your own personal hotel. It's that friend's house that you got to borrow for the weekend and it's been lived in perfectly for 50 years. That's the kind of feel. So amenities, yes, certainly differentiate itself. Wellness, yes, but not in the sense of we need to necessarily go and drive towards that. That's the trail. Go out
Mhm.
and connect with nature. That's the wellness, and I think that's the timeless wellness. So it's not, hey, we're doing goat yoga at sunrise, but also hot yoga sessions in the barn. We do plan on finding local artisans who have these businesses because we have the space and allowing them to offer these types of options. So we're also then focused on the local economy, becoming as good of neighbors as we can. But I don't know if there's any one thing where we're going to say, hey, this is what we're going to be known for. No,
I
no
I
cold
actually
plunges
think
or
if push came to shove, what we would say we want to be known for is nature. That is truly the root of what drew us to the property. I think the heart of the area is the natural beauty you find there. And so I know wellness is very trendy right now, finding the wellness resorts and having the cold plunges and the saunas and the massage and all of that stuff, which no judgment there. I love a good massage. I would use all of those amenities happily. But I think for us, it's less pin boxing ourselves into one area like wellness and instead focusing on its nature that we want you to be able to come and experience, but we want you to have some fun activities and amenities that you're able to use while you're there.
those
And I
memories.
think that, yeah, building memories with your family and giving you the tools you need aside from just going out for a hike. But I think some of the more basic things like being able to do a bonfire and have s'mores, that is a basic, what most people would say is like, you have to have that. But that's the kind of tool we want to give you, that instead of in the sauna, I
Mm.
guess I would say. Probably be more of our focus.
And so when you went to the land, you instantly felt connected to it. So do you think other people, when they visit, they'll have that, or are you going to develop ways that they might connect to it
No,
in
I,
a,
People already have. And I will say, I think, I don't know if we touched on this or not, but one of the things that I think has been a unique experience for us, as you mentioned, we are just starting. We are talking to you from the very beginning. This is not a retrospective. Because we already had this house on the property, instead of buying a property and then immediately building a glamp site or a micro resort or whatever, we focused on turning the existing house into a short-term rental. So we started with it listed on Airbnb. And because of that, we've had the experience of hosting at a very
personal,
small
very personal.
level. Yeah, a personal level. That's right. And instead of trying to jump straight into, all right, we're scaling, we're building this whole thing, we've gotten to talk to our guests. As I mentioned, I love that hospitality side and I will pretty much talk to anyone. So I'm happy to always chat with guests when they need something. But it has allowed us to see the perspective of our guests. And I can't tell you, we've multiple times had people say, this is one of the best Airbnbs I've ever stayed in. The property is incredible. It's better than the pictures. We can't wait to come back. And we literally, I just got a message before we got on this call with you from a guest who is a repeat guest. She was here last summer with her group, and she was like, we had yet another wonderful stay. We're already planning our return trip. So there is something to the property and also the house, but just being there, there is something that we recognize people connect with. It's not just us thinking, oh, this is special. And then people come and they're like, yeah, it's cool, but I think people really do connect with it and see the inherent value in just the land and how beautiful it is.
I think it's great when we get awesome reviews on the house. When it's the land is mentioned, that again is the
Mhm.
validation of we are doing the right thing. Unprompted, it spoke to them and they felt so called to let us know. So that's the continuous validation we've gotten over the last year. I'd say at least half of our conversations and reviews revolve around the land itself.
So when you say that the land talks to them, is it the views and the vistas? Is it what is it? Is there some kind of energy to the land? Tell me what you think it is.
I think that, so while it's not a trail like you would see at a state park, which hopefully is what we would aim to have eventually, there is a trail system that we keep maintained throughout our whole property. Obviously, it's not going to touch all 71 acres, but it is a looping multi-path trail system, and we mow it and keep, like I said, keep Mark as the tractor, and we keep it maintained. But I think that would probably be the first thing, other than you drive in and you see it's very secluded. I think that trail system is what allows people to see so much of the property and feel so
It,
grounded there.
And there's no one thing. So there is no Vista. While it's unique, it's still Indiana, right? So we're not having these 1,000-foot cliff sunrises or sunsets. What you're having is an ongoing and consistent orchestra of nature around you. So it's the pause. And with that trail system, you find your own vista, right? What makes sense to you? Maybe you did just go see a group of turkeys running in front of you, or six deer, a herd of deer are passing across. So there's no one thing, Sarah. You don't have to wait in line to take your shot. This isn't the Instagram. The whole place is Instagrammable, at least from my
Mhm.
point of view. So it's not like one of those where, hey, oh, is the Instagram and the reality is 2 hours of in line. You,
Mhm.
you find your own moment. I don't think there's one necessary spot that anyone comes back to. And it depends on the season. If it's been
Mhm.
raining, then the creeks are running. So people are drawn towards those. If it's really dry or it's the end of the season, it might be the 2 weeks that the monarchs are coming through. You never know. It's changing constantly and we're learning from it.
We also have if you look at the property, we have a couple different fields. So they're not wooded or maybe lightly wooded. that you're able to see, and those are beautiful. We get a lot of wildflower growth, which obviously the colors and the types of flowers change from season to season, which is really cool to watch. And then we also have wooded areas. So you're walking through this path through the woods, and you have to cross a creek to get to the next portion. And I think there's a lot of different, just again, what Mark
Yeah.
said, there's so many different types of views as you're walking these trails and as you're experiencing your stay, that it keeps it interesting and fresh. You all of this in one property.
I think if there was going to be one piece we would end up tying it to, and we're just not there yet because we haven't done it full bore, is it's super dark skies. And so really trying to set up something to allow folks to, see the stars like they've never seen before. So we haven't researched enough, but telescopes and that quick little bit of information and education we can give a guest before they go and actually try and operate it so they know what to look for in that area at that time of year. Those little pieces I think play in. But other than that, so far, we just kind of open up the door and let you greet nature where it makes the most sense for you.
I was having a conversation with someone at the Glamping show last year about how they helped launch their business by inviting in astronomers and people who are very expert at identifying star systems and giving very useful information. They did a number of open days, or open nights, let's say,
Yeah.
to invite people in from the local area. And then people, they weren't necessarily staying, but they saw everything. So it was almost
Right.
like an open day, attract local people, they see what you've developed, they see what you've done, and then they start talking about it and sharing it. And it was a great marketing thing, which was pretty much for free because everyone wanted to share the information they had. They had the equipment. It was brilliant storytelling about the different star systems. Yeah, it's a great idea. People love it, especially in dark sky areas. And if you've got that, then definitely promote your dark sky area.
Right.
And so when we're talking about the fact that you are just at the beginning of your journey, you really are just at the beginning of your journey. But like with everything, when you are somebody who is, let's say you're teaching someone to drive a car and you've been driving it, you're an expert and you're trying to reach back into how did I learn? What did I first think of when I was going through that learning to drive process? You're in the same thing. You're learning to start up the glamping business that you're starting, but you're really in it amongst it. So you're actually in the best place to give instruction right now because it's so fresh in your head. And it hasn't become automatic like when you drive a car. You automatically use it in the way you use it. And you can't think about how do I tell people to drive it in a certain way because it's all automatic for me. Where did you start? And what would you, if someone was in the earlier stages to you, so a few steps behind, what would you suggest to them that they did? What would be your urgent kind of advice for them?
I'll let Maggie go
It's
first.
a good question.
Yeah, I'll let Maggie go first.
I wish I'd got on to listen to this podcast when we started. One of the things, I don't know that this is necessarily a huge insight or anything, but the ability to put your head down and do the work. I cannot tell you how many times I have looked back at the past. Gosh, we started this. I went to the Taylor Swift concert November 1st, 2024. And in that time, there are so many instances where I look and I think, oh my gosh, we just blacked out. I do not know how we did it. I look back and we just worked without stopping and it's truly,
You're
it
going to
was
commit to it.
overwhelming the amount of work that goes into this. And I think not to scare anybody who might be interested, but to recognize that you just have to do the work and then you come out on the other side. And don't worry, you will have blacked out and you won't know how you got through it. You'll be fine afterwards.
Oh.
Just put your head.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and I think to piggyback off of that, because one thing when we said, are we going to do this, is you have to be real with yourself. What are you
Mm.
good at? What do you know you're good at? And then more importantly, what are your deficiencies? Because taking on something at this scale is not going to be the time you then learn all of a sudden how to schedule better. And so what helped in our long-term rental was figuring out who we were in partnership. My strengths, Maggie's strengths, and then we applied those to a much grander scale. So being real with ourselves and constantly checking in on that. It's not just a one-time conversation. And then the second thing for us, we painted the vision and worked backwards. What do we actually want to accomplish here? And I think this might just be a me, but I'm sure there's a couple other people that think like me. 80% of that vision has to stay consistent. We can't keep changing it. It can't go from 10 to 20 dwellings or all of a sudden because, hey, there's wellness is the push. Now we have to go and build out the sauna. This is going to be our version of what we want to go build and create long term, not what's going to be attractive, hopefully in the next 18 to 24 months, but just have that sustaining power.
Coming up with that idea and then sticking to it, I think is what's the quote where it's if you cater to everyone, you cater to no one, or
Yeah.
Please
probably that.
everybody,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
nobody type.
That is true. And you really do need to figure out what you want to do and who your audience is, and what you need to figure that out and then be confident that you're right. And you're banking on that fact and putting all your eggs in that basket. But you can't you'll have no eggs left if you put them in a ton of baskets. Yeah, you just have to really commit to that one idea. Another thing that I think, you always hear another saying of one step forward and two steps back or whatever. I think what we've realized is every time we feel like we've made a step forward, it doesn't necessarily then create two steps back. What we see instead is that it creates 15 lateral steps.
More questions to answer. Yeah.
There's just the second you make progress in one area, you're going to have a ton of other things come up because you made that progress. And it's not necessarily going backwards, but it's a lot of different things that you need to do to move forward. And just recognizing that is how it's going to be for a very long time. And this is not you can't jump into this and do all of the glitzy what on Instagram or what you hear in a recap podcast of I built a $3 million micro resort and this is how I did it. It is not those highlights. It is actually very rarely those highlights. It is actually just hard work and a lot of steps and a lot of details and figuring out the regulations and stuff. So recognizing that you're going to have to work through that and realizing how important it is and just being ready to do it, I think would be helpful to remember.
So have you done anything like your business planning? Have you done anything like that? And where are you with your permissions? Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, wanting to realizing that there was a lot that we did not know going into all kinds of development and listening to enough podcasts where people have done it, talking to people who haven't done it, and saying it's one thing to know that you can build there and it's low regulation. It's another thing to actually sit down with them. We've had a handful of conversations and meetings with multiple government agencies locally just to see what is the land zoned at now? What do we need to have it zoned? What is that process? Who do we talk to? As we look at further build out. It's a rural area that's trying to grow. Currently, anything we build would have to be on its own system, but there's potential in the future for expanded sewer and electric. So, who are the people we need to talk to now when they're making those decisions in 5 years? Lucky it's a small place, so you just show up at the courthouse and you just start asking questions. But everybody's always helping or helpful. And again, just let them know what you don't know trying to accomplish. Be upfront with it because otherwise they're going to tell you to do the wrong thing because you told them you were doing a different thing. And 9 times out of 10, they want to see you grow because that's going to help their municipalities. We started there in terms of just, again, we have a monthly check-in now just to make sure that anything new ordinance-wise we're ahead of and we're trying to fit into what the county's already looking to achieve instead of saying go write new rules for us and then find the professionals. So other people that we met when we were out at the glamping showcase was again builders who will handle a ton of stuff. But before we do that, do we even have a feasible idea? So right now, our next step is to really lock in on a feasibility study while we're still talking to financial institutions. So those are our two big pieces, feasibility, financing.
And so what's your hopes for the near future in terms of, so, Are you going to be starting to do things as we talked about the YouTube channel that you're thinking about doing? Are you going to start to document your story in some way? Are you going to be sharing that for marketing purposes? That's the more wishful actions that you'll be aiming for, whereas obviously the practical actions are the permissions and feasibility studies and things like that. So tell me a bit more about that. Are you being creative and thinking along those lines?
I'm trying. Should we be on more social channels? Yes. Right now, we're just on Instagram. So we're starting to try to build using Instagram really just as a way to showcase what we're doing. So I'm not trying to be an influencer and say, I know what to do. This is what you should do. Instead, look at it as this is what we're doing if you're interested in seeing how it goes for us. And being upfront. I just some things I'm like, this is a great idea. I liked this. Some things this did not work out, or this was a roadblock. Trying to be transparent and show the ups and the downs would be a goal. But
Yeah.
again, would we like to expand to more social channels? For sure. You're the one who told us how great it would be to be on YouTube. So that is a goal right now.
I think that's for me, especially Maggie's embraced it and doing great. That's where my biggest level of discomfort comes from. It's not trying to build this huge vision. It is A, remembering to hit record before you just start getting after it. And then B, being willing to put yourself out there enough to be like, yeah, I screwed that up royally. But
Mark would rather rebuild our entire deck than make one reel for Instagram. So that
but
is, yeah.
I understand the need, and so that's the growth, Sarah. That's the growth. So that's part of the progress too, right? I think we don't really have a lot of polish in a lot of areas. We just have a lot of focus when we want to go and accomplish something. That'll be part of the growth in the story too. But absolutely, we have hours of stuff recorded, and now we just need to start figuring out when's the right time to start rolling that out. My biggest fear is hitting a dearth of, hey, great progress, and we're still looking for financing, or we're still walking through the feasibility. But I do think we've hit that point, and Maggie's got a great strategy of just making sure people know what we're doing. It doesn't, 99% of what I follow isn't this crazy stuff. It's just a continuation of a story. So once I can package it like that,
And
that
start
was
and
helpful.
really make sure that we're focusing on those realistic sides of what we're doing, not just the here's the fun part or the flashy part.
Yeah,
Showing the full journey, the whole
that's it.
journey,
That's it.
warts and all.
Yes, yes.
100%. 100%. I think that's the best way to approach it. And let people, I think that makes it more approachable for other people.
Yeah, and I think that's how people connect with you, that they see you're not perfect. This is a lot of people do have that problem with social media. They think they need to be as perfect as the influencers that they're watching. And it's really not about that at all in this world. It's about saying, I'm a real person, I'm doing a real thing too. Follow along and see what goes well and what doesn't go well. And hopefully they'll click follow and they'll stay with you as an audience. And I agree with you. I think you've got to take bite-sized chunks of things if you know what you can do and what you don't want to do. And if Instagram is what you're doing, then brilliant, stick with that. Just don't miss those opportunities of getting and capturing those videos, because those moments will never come back to you again. And you can always edit those into films or videos for YouTube in the future or wherever in the future. It doesn't have to be YouTube. Actually, who knows? In a couple of years' time, there might be another social platform.
Correct.
Everything is moving so fast at the moment with everything going on with AI and all these different platforms. Who knows what will happen? And how much easier it will be for you to actually give some form of AI your videos and it will edit everything for you. At least you've captured it and then you can share it. But it's definitely a great way of building a following from my experience. And I know that a lot of people have launched their businesses very successfully with that following that they've grown over the years, showing the things that have gone wrong and right and looking a fool and kind of not worrying about it too much. But I do completely relate with you, Mark, though, completely. And I think
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
else does who's listening as
yeah,
well, to be honest.
yeah.
When you're going through this process, how do you wake up every day and kind of go, we've got all these, because you've got family, you've got children. How do you make your day count? with everything else that you've got to do? Do you have a list of tasks? This is what we're going to do today. Do you have any project management tools that you use? We're going to put stuff onto Asana or Trello or whatever. How do you manage all of these things that you're trying to get done?
I do most of the day-to-day project and task management. Mark still has a full-time job. He's working that the way anybody else is working a full-time job. I left my nonprofit job at the end of 2019 to stay home with, we now have two children. And so I am able to focus a lot of my time when they're in school during the school year on our jobs. But it's a timely question because right now we're on summer break. And while they do have camp every so often, a lot of the time they do not have camp. And it does force me to really juggle my time
Mm.
quite a bit. So even as we're recording this, we have one at home who keeps trying to push mail through the door to us. In case you heard anything,
Yeah.
that was Earl. But so in terms of tools that we use, I could not run our STR out at the park at Turkey Run without Hospitable is the main one that we use there. We use Price Labs to help us with pricing and dynamic pricing and figuring that stuff out. Hospitable is the one that really allows us to not only manage the calendar, but also do automated messaging for our guests. For one-off messages, I'm the one who's responding, but when you book at 1:20 a.m., you get a message that I wrote, but Hospitable's sending it
Yeah.
to you. And that's really pretty nice to have.
Yeah, as Maggie said, she is my CRM here. She manages all that, lets me know. So we just have constant check-ins. Hey, what
Mm,
needs to get done? And then if it's something that's on my plate, my to-do, I'm old school. I have a big old whiteboard in my office, and it
yep.
goes up there, and it just they stay listed until they get checked off. The one big change there that I realized was we couldn't add hours to the day. And I don't love getting up early, but ever since we've taken
Mm,
this on, I now get up about an hour and a half before the rest of the house because then it gets done. It's first thing. I used to be a night owl. I don't have the
mm,
energy. Nighttime, bedtime comes for our kids, and I'm just ready to follow them into bed myself. That's the biggest change is that I carve out those 90 minutes at the start of every day. That way, it's not creeping into the back of my mind when I'm in my W-2. I know what I need to do that afternoon or that evening, whenever, but that's been the biggest change to make sure that we're constantly moving the ball forward, even those times when it feels like we're stuck in mud.
We also
Mm.
have a unique opportunity in that I obviously am working from my home office during the day when our kids are at school, but Mark works from home as well. And because of that remote work, we are in the house together quite a bit. And that does allow us the opportunity to communicate face to face all pretty much all the time. Obviously, he's in meetings, he's on calls, but that's been a big help for us, which I think not everybody has the opportunity to have that situation or that setup, but it's hugely helpful for us when we have something that pops up. I'm popping into his office to talk through it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Because the last thing you want to do as you have two young children is to not be present for them and to be absent. And so it is quite challenging to manage the development of new business and children at home. And I suppose, in a way, because I know that because I have two of my own and I've had exactly the same thing. As you're on a podcast call and they're running it, I've got teenagers now, so they're even noisier.
Sure, sure.
And the things that actually might happen on a podcast interview in the background is much more distracting.
Mhm.
But I do think that there's this balance. But there's also a sense of maybe bring the children into it. And don't worry that they're in the background. Don't worry that they may be heard or that they may be seen by guests or the people that you're applying for the permissions for or whatever. Is to actually say, look, we're a family. This is our business. This is a family business, and make them all part of that. Would you agree?
Definitely.
Warts and all, like you said.
I can't tell you how many times our kids have gone to look at a property when we were in acquisition mode for our long-term rentals. They have been involved in our,
Every day today, I mean,
yeah,
every
I
trip
mean,
we take out to the property as a family,
they're out there too.
30 to 35% of it is work related, right? We're getting this fixed or added, and our goal is to make sure they're part of it. Our long-term goal is that this is part of family legacy and they want to take it over. But if they choose a different path, at least they're going to know it as a kid, and
Mhm.
they're not going to have to discover that at 20, whether or not it's in their blood or not. But I think you're right. Warts and all, right? This is the full Klein family package of
Yeah.
what we're trying to create.
A lot
Take
of
us
what
as you find us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
A lot of what I talk about on Instagram is that juggling both sides because I am part-time. I stay at home part of the time. And how do you juggle managing a business while also raising two kids? And how do you juggle a full-time job while also trying to get this rental property business off the ground? And it's a lot about juggling for us.
No, but they've so far taken to it. We answer the questions that they ask as what we're doing things, and then we tell them what the future is. This is what we're doing and why we're doing it, and where we hope you play into it.
And we recently, our older daughter, who is just turned 8, she requested her birthday party be a sleepover where she got to bring some friends out to our property. And we started that as a business, but it's always so wonderful and heartwarming and refreshing to hear that your kid, who has to go out there a lot and has to help a lot, still loves it so much that she wants to have her birthday party out there and share it with her friends.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. So,
Mhm.
if somebody wants to follow along because they're very much at the beginning of their journey, the same as you are, when do you think you might be the next stage that you might be able to share something? When are you assuming or estimating that might happen?
Yeah.
You could always follow us on Instagram to keep up. So we have an Instagram handle for our property. It's called The Park at Turkey Run. It is spelled Parke because we are located in Park County, and that is how it's spelled out there. You can also follow me on Instagram at The Rental Life with Maggie or Mark at The Rental Life
If you
with
find
Mark.
Maggie, you'll find me. Yeah,
Yes.
there we go.
And then
Uh,
timeline
Before the end of the
is
year.
changing.
Yeah. So before the end of the year, we'll have our feasibility study
Mhm.
run, and our goal is to have financing locked up would be wonderful, but have a very good beat on that. And we're still exploring both traditional, multiple different loan programs as well as private. The world's our oyster in terms of that, but those are the two goals we've set that by the end of 2026 we will have in place just to keep this ball rolling. And then that way we can dream of what 2027 might bring in terms of groundbreaking.
Brilliant. So, do you promise then that when you get to sharing something new because you've got something, a development, will you come back to me and we'll have a chat?
100%.
Absolutely love to.
Can't wait.
And I say, no, we're not too much smoke, but I think we're at this point because we found you and the work you're doing in Glamping Americas. That was a huge ability for us to check a lot of things off our box in a 72-hour period and just have a ton of fun doing it. So
Yeah.
shameless plug for you there, but it
It's,
really was
it's
what
an
helped us
incredible show. Yeah.
get to this point.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And as you said, it's in a very short amount of time, you can make a massive amount of progress and
Become
know
prepared.
just in your mind where you're going next, because that's part of the challenge, isn't it? Do we do this? Do we do that? All these questions are going around, but it seems to really cement everything in that moment because you're seeing it, you're physically touching materials, you're speaking to vendors, you're seeing actually how it looks, but also you're seeing all these other things that you never even considered before and you didn't know about. And oh my goodness, that might work, or this might work, or we could do that. And it's pretty incredible. And the networking, as we know, is
Yeah.
great, especially after the first day when everybody ends up outside,
Yeah.
usually in the sunshine, which it has been every time that I've been
Yes.
there, apart from the first one, which was in the snow. That was quite challenging. But yeah,
Gosh.
and then everyone's eating pizza or drinking wine, and it's just lovely environment. So it's a really nice place to mix. So yeah, if you can make it, I know you'll be really busy this year, but if you can make it this year, we'd love to see you. But absolutely, everyone else who's listening, definitely try and make it. It's well worth it, as you are evidence
Agreed.
of that.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure to hang out with you today. I thank Taylor Swift for everything she did.
We'll make sure this gets back to her someday,
Yeah,
right?
hopefully she's
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure she
Yeah.
is. Of course
Yeah.
she is. And yeah, really looking forward to chatting to you again. And the best of luck with everything and keep in touch.
We
Absolutely
will.
Thanks,
Yep.
Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you soon.
Yep.
All right.
Bye-bye.